Denodo Data Bites. Welcome everyone to another insightful episode of the Denodo Data Bites series. I'm your host Neha, and today we're thrilled to have Dominic Sartorio with us, the VP of Product Marketing here at Denodo. So Dominic brings a wealth of expertise spanning the data landscape, covering analytics, governance, integration, security, and cloud infrastructure. Dominic, it's a pleasure to have you back on our podcast. Before we dive into today's intriguing topic, that is navigating the era of accelerated change, embracing fearless data with Denodo, could you share a brief overview of your background and your role at Denodo for our new listeners, please?
Yeah, thank you, Neha, and it's great to be back here on this podcast. I always enjoy doing these. Yeah, I'm still pretty new to Denodo. I joined August of last year, but I've been in the data management space a long time prior to then. Had multiple years career at Informatica and Protegrity and several other data management, data privacy related companies. And I think throughout my career, I've always been at the forefront of how do we help the business and users in the business. So basically the common people who are not data experts be able to make more sense out of their data, right? And make better use of it to make better decisions. And so I've always been kind of in the forefront of that. How do you help with self-service? How do you help with better governance? How do you help people trust the data so they can take action with it throughout my career? And so it's been interesting to see the waves of technology that have washed onto the shores of data management over the last couple of decades, including big data and the cloud. And now we're seeing AI having its heyday. But that challenge is always there, right? How do you get everybody in an organization to get everything they can out of their data and be smarter with it? So that's become, I guess, a passion in my career, and I'm delighted to bring that passion and those insights to Denodo.
Wonderful to hear. Thank you, Dominic. So let's dive right in then to today's topic. So my question for you today is, can you explain how the concept of fearless data has transformed data management strategies, and what role does Denodo play in alleviating fears and building confidence in data initiatives?
Yeah, great question. This kind of goes back to my lead in here. In spite of all the new technologies that have come out, starting from traditional data warehouses and then folks adopt the cloud because they get the cost benefits and accessibility. Then there's big data starting with Hadoop and then subsequent technologies. And now there's AI. We've been throwing so much technology at the problem of data management, and it's still a problem. You still have a problem of organizations having too low of percentage of their people have access to the data they need and then be able to quickly make sense of that data to do their jobs better. Whatever the job is, could be serving customers, bringing product to market, managing some aspect of their operations, governance and compliance, whatever it is. And there was some research put out through Harvard Business Review just about 3 years ago, where still, as of then, only about a third of people in an average enterprise have access to data that can help them do their jobs better. And that number is way too low in spite of all the innovation and all the technology out there, right? And I think that challenge is just increasing in importance, especially in recent years, because we live in a world of change, right? And it's accelerating change. Change itself is not new, but it's accelerating. And just think back to the last 4 years. Think back to March 2020, suddenly pandemic and everybody's working from home and places shut down. And that was a huge disruption. Right? And you can imagine organizations where 2/3 of people were not able to see in real time, how is this affecting customer behavior? How is this affecting their ability to do business, to source products through their supply chain, whatever their use case is? If they don't have the data to really understand what's happening, how can they do their jobs effectively? Right? And so that was a big challenge for many organizations. But since then, there have been ongoing big changes and discontinuities and black swan events, right? We've had wars breaking out in different parts of the world, like Russia invading Ukraine, et cetera. You've got the rise of different geopolitical tensions, like with China and other parts of the world that are making many organizations question their supply chains and do they have the resilience. You've got political and social unrest right here in the USA and in other Western democracies. Just look at the election year we had in 2020, and we're about to have another one, God help us, right? And also you're looking at democracies around the world having elections. So the possibility of significant changes in government policy that can happen depending on who wins an election could itself be very disruptive. So we seem to be living in a world of disruption and accelerating change, and a lot of it's unpredictable. And organizations have to navigate through that. They have to respond to that. And for organizations that are smart, they have an opportunity to be more competitive, win customers and more customers through their ability to continually delight customers and be excellent in what they do in spite of these changes. So I think, though, this challenge of, just not having the data you need when you need it, right, and to do your job better in the face of accelerating change and accelerating disruption in the world is creating a culture of fear in many organizations. Fear, uncertainty, and doubt. Do I have the data I need to take action and make it the right action? Can I get it quickly enough to make a difference? When I do get it, is it in a form that I can understand? Or maybe I'm developing an app or I'm using AI. Is it a form that it can leverage to produce good results? So you have a lot of this FUD out there. And here at Denodo, we've been introducing the concept of fearless data, which is all about delivering data in the language of the users, everybody in an organization who needs it, have it be a form they can understand and use in their day job. And not just the language of their users, but the speed at which they need it. Because sometimes these changes happen super fast, and you have to pivot significant parts of how you work and how you do business really quickly. And you need the right data, and you need it right now to make sure you're making the right decisions and have the confidence in that. So that's what we mean by fearless data, is having the data you need when you need it so that you can act with confidence and you can respond decisively, confidently, even proactively to all the changes happening in the world.
Thank you, Dominic. This is very interesting. So, what are some common fears and uncertainties surrounding data management for organizations? And how do these challenges hinder their ability to achieve their goals?
Yeah, great question. And I'll definitely double click into that. So first, let's talk about who are different stakeholders in an organization and what are they trying to do with data. So first, there are the end users, just people in the trenches whose job might be customer service or selling or marketing or product development or supply chain management or even finance, things like that. And they all need data just to do their jobs better. Like the customer service person needs to see in front of them all the relevant data on the customer they're interacting with at that moment. The marketer needs good data so that they can be confident their campaigns or their market analytics is accurate and is informing good decisions. Operations people need good data so they can see in real time what's happening operationally and take the right actions in the moment. So whoever you are, you need data. But if you don't get the right data delivered to you fast enough in a form that you can use, right, then you're kind of flying blind, right? Or you're struggling to make sense of the data you have to the point where you're not really confident in what it's telling you. So that's one fear people in the trenches have, right? It's like, am I making the right decision? What I'm about to say to this customer, is it the best thing? The analytic conclusion I'm about to make as a marketer, is that the right thing? The operational insight I have or what operationally I need to do next, is it the right thing, right? So, and in a climate where there's constant change, that fear can increase. But it's not just the people in the trenches. Let's think about leadership, right? Let's say you're the CIO, right? And your job is to digitally transform, digitally modernize the organization to make data more available and accessible. Maybe you're standing up a data lake or you're migrating to the cloud. You have a fear that migration does not succeed, or it takes too long, or it can disrupt the business because you're asking them to change their apps, change their reports, and make a lot of changes. Or when you get to the other end, the performance and the scale isn't what you expect. So you have those fears, right? And so you need to have confidence that once you get to the other end of your transformation, you are actually in a good or better place. Or let's say your job is risk and compliance management. You have all these regulations that you have to comply with, privacy regulations, regulatory reporting requirements. Your fear is you can't get accurate data that really represents your compliance posture so that you're actually reporting on it to the auditors. Or how can you really make sure that all this data that's flying all over the place, any sensitive data is in fact being kept under control? So, I mean, those are just examples of some of the fears. And I'll say one more. Let's say you're an application developer or you're a data scientist working with AI, right? You have the rise of intelligent apps that have AI embedded and now generative AI, a lot of cool use cases and applications you can build around that. You can be afraid, though, is it telling you the right things? Is it hallucinating? It gave me an answer I did not expect. Where did it get that answer from? Can I trust it, right? So that's another fear that people can have. So no matter who you are in the organization, you're doing something with data. Either you're consuming it or you're developing with it, or you're a leader and your job is to manage an operation or manage a digital transformation, or you're managing compliance. And whether you're working with the data technology or working with the data itself, there's the fear of, am I going to end up in a better place? Am I getting the data I need, or am I in fact delivering the data to the people who need it when they need it to make better decisions? And that's a fear that many organizations have, whether they want to admit that openly or not.
That's true. That's very valid. Moving towards the mindset, like how does the traditional mindset of centralizing data contribute to complexity, high costs, and delays? And what steps can organizations take to adopt a new approach focused on delivering data in the language of the users?
Yeah, thanks for bringing that up, because that's kind of the core of the problem here. And as I mentioned earlier, there have been several waves of technology over the decades, and each one has resulted in a lot of investment, a lot of spend on new data technologies, right? And you go back to the traditional data warehouse back like in the 1990s, right? And then you had data marts, and then the cloud emerged, and everybody started migrating to the cloud. And then big data emerged with Hadoop and then Spark and other technologies that let you process data at massive scales, right? And then people brought that together, traditional data warehousing with, these more modern technologies like Hadoop, and you built out the data lake and the lake house, right? Which all of these investments have been made, but this problem is still there. People in the business don't get the data they need when they need it. Only about a third of people in an organization can access the data and get what they need when they need it. This is still a problem. So you do need to start looking at, maybe the problem is not really the technology necessarily, but the problem is how we, the people, are using it. And something that has been common and has persisted throughout those successive waves of technology innovation has been the mindset of how to do data management. So you brought up mindset. What's wrong with the mindset? I think we have been stuck in a mindset of traditional data management that had its roots in the 1990s. The mindset of, I'm going to stand up a central enterprise data warehouse, and I'm going to connect to all my data sources, and I'm going to move that data. I'm going to ETL it, extract, transform, and load it, right? And that takes time, right? It takes data engineering time and effort. There's some expense involved. The data is probably not real time, but batch. And then you dump it in a central data warehouse. Great, then it's there. But is that in a form where everybody in an organization can use it? Maybe you made some analysts happy. What about the developers of an application where they want that application to do decision support or make recommendations based on that data? Is it in the right form? Or you're the data scientist trying to do model training, or you're an operations lead trying to discern insights in real time. You may have use cases like predictive maintenance and so on. It's just not in the form they need it. So not only are you spending a lot of time to get data from its original sources, ETL it, and dump it in the central location, then there's additional time to prep the data for each downstream use case so that it's a form that they can leverage. And that takes more time and more expense. And often the people whose job it was to do that original load into the central data house don't understand the business context well enough to prepare it adequately. So you have a subject matter knowledge outage. So all of that put together conspires to just delay getting data in the hands of people who need it. Like, think back to March 15th, 2020, right? Suddenly everybody's shut down, everybody's working from home. If you're a retailer, people used to go to the mall, go to your store, now they're shopping online. Very quickly, you need to be able to assess, what are their online habits? What's happening and what are they saying on social media, right? Is the flow of orders and the effectiveness of our digital ads, how is that all changing, right? Everyone in marketing is saying, give me that data set that shows me that. right? But if you're stuck in traditional data management, I've heard horror stories. It could take weeks to months to build the ETL jobs, prep the data, and then it's too late, right? You've probably gone out of business and your competitors have taken all your market share, right? So just imagine any reason for change. It doesn't have to be something as big and dire as the pandemic, right? Anything that happens in the world, or it could be a positive thing, like a great new innovative idea somewhere in the business. Hey, I want to try it out. I want to test it out. Let me A/B test it, right? But give me the data I need so I can move faster, test this quickly, and improve my time to innovation, right? Any of those things then get slowed down just because of the mindset of traditional data management. I got to move my data to central location, transform it, and then downstream, I got to prep the data for everybody downstream who can possibly use it. Just takes too much time. So we need a completely different approach than what we've had before. Or, we're not going to address the root problem here with people feeling the fear, uncertainty, and doubt that they don't have the data they need to be successful here in, 2024.
That makes a lot of sense. Thanks, Dominic. So I think with fearless data, we are taking a few steps towards changing this traditional mindset and communicating with organizations that, hey, there's an easier way to do this. There's an easier way to manage your data. And, at Denodo, we can help you with that. So perfect. And so how have technological advancements since 2020, since the pandemic, reshaped the landscape for organizations? And what challenges have emerged in delivering data effectively to frontline workers and leadership, in your opinion?
Yeah, so I think a core problem is just so much investment in so many different technologies has just created all this complexity, right? You have different specialized databases and analytic engines all over the place, right? You got the rise of AI with, training data, and you have to train the models, and that's a new set of use cases and technologies. You have business intelligence tools and analytics and advanced visualization tools being used all over the business. Now you've got people building intelligent applications to run their operations on a day-to-day basis. So you've got this panoply of new technologies and new approaches that's led to all this complexity and data being distributed, right? So, and it kind of makes sense why people stick to the traditional data management mindset. In the face of all this complexity, right, and new engines popping up all the time that need data, and so data is moving around. You're making copies of it everywhere, so different people can use it within their tool of choice. Kind of the natural psychological reaction to that, when you feel, look, I gotta get control over this, is to try to re-centralize, right? And then that leads to traditional data management of having to move all of your data into one place, and then you have to prep it. And it might be counterintuitive, but that mindset of responding to the complexity of distributed data by centralizing it, you're only compounding the problem, right? Because it takes a lot of time and energy to centralize it. And any given day, there's somebody in the organization saying, look, I got a new use case. I need a different tool for it, or I'm building a new app and I need data in a different form. The universe trends towards entropy, right? It's like there's always going to be some new thing, some new use case, some new reason to present data in a different way, or new data that didn't exist before because there's a new application that got spun up, right? So, and I think traditional data management is just trying to fight that, right? Don't fight it. It's a law of nature, right? You're going to have entropy. You're going to have change. You're going to have new ideas. You're going to have new demands. So embrace being distributed, right? There is one new technology that has emerged that can actually help embrace distributedness, and that's data virtualization, what Denodo was based on. So that is a way where you say, look, we'll give everybody what they need. We'll deliver data in their language, like the form they need it, at the speed which they need it. But by short-circuiting traditional data management, you don't have to move the data. You don't have to centralize it. You don't have to build those complex ETL jobs and data pipelines and data preparation jobs. You can leave the data where it is, right? And then have, instead of centralizing the data itself, centralize the access to it, where everybody knows where they can go to get the data they need. You centralize the access, right? And then let the power of data virtualization and the Denodo platform figure out for itself, okay, where is the data that's being asked of me right now? right? And have it be a metadata-driven approach to understand, okay, this data is in that system over here. The other part of that data is in that system over there. Generate that distributed query and bring back only exactly what needs to be brought back, right? And do it intelligently. If you need to cache it, you can cache it. So let the power of that technology do that so that you don't need armies of data engineers to have to do that manually and have to move data and make copies and build all these data pipelines all the time. Let the power of the platform do it for you, right? So I guess the answer to your question is, yeah, all the new technologies out there have created this problem of distributedness and complexity, right? And then people naturally react to that by trying to centralize it, impose order. But that doesn't work in the long run, and it just creates more stress and challenge. So let's embrace distributedness. And the one new technology, data virtualization, really is part of the answer there. So that way, all those stakeholders I talked about earlier that are feeling the fear and certainly in doubt, right? Things I'm trying to do with data, trying to deliver data, I'm trying to modernize, whatever it is they're trying to do, right? Instead of saying, okay, I have to take physical possession of the data, I have to move it, I have to transfer, I have to do all these different things to it, I have to govern it. It's significantly simplified by saying, okay, single point of access. It's that single point that I can define all my views. I can enable the self-service. People can grab it and do their own prep, right? They can single place to define data privacy and governance policies, right? And have data quality guardrails as well. There's one place to go to, regardless of where that data is, right? And let the underlying data virtualization technology figure out, okay, where do I go to pull back the data we need, and then automatically apply all the right policies and everything else I need to apply to do that. The final thing I'll say to this is this also helps with generative AI, right? That's the hot new trend in 2023 and 24, right? Everybody wants to be smarter with data. Now, wow, here's generative AI, which is human-like in its intelligence, but everybody needs to feed it with data, right? And Gen AI is, from a data management perspective, is just yet another use case. It's yet another consumer of data, large quantities of data, right? But it has all the same challenges, like, is it trustworthy? Is it privacy compliant, right? Is it up to date, right? Is it in a form where when the large language model is doing its thing and generating results, can those results be trusted, right? What is the lineage of the data that it used to generate that result? All of those questions are there, right? But just like with traditional data management, it's hard to answer those questions for Gen AI, right? If you're stuck in that mindset of having to centralize and move and transform and prep all the time. Instead, just have Gen AI use the single same data access layer as other use cases do. And you can get those models trained, you can enforce privacy compliance, and you can deliver the right data and understand how it generated results that much faster. You can get your Gen AI initiative off the ground that much faster, and therefore innovate and bring that innovation to market that much faster.
Very well said, Dominic. So I think in a nutshell, organizations need to embrace being fearless with their distributed data, like you were saying earlier. And in fact, with their general, data management needs by using data virtualization and logical data management. And Denodo can definitely help doing this for them. So this was a wonderful session. Thank you so much for sharing your insights on fearless data with Denodo.
Thank you. Be fearless.
As we near the end of our session, I have a quick Q&A round for you. Are you ready?
Okay. Yeah, go ahead.
Perfect. So my first question for you is, what's been the most surprising thing you've learned throughout your career journey?
That's a really good question. I've had plenty of surprises. I think the biggest surprise for me, right, as I've gone throughout my career, every few years there's a brand new technology that you could not have imagined, the prior few years, which now suddenly is the hot new thing, right? So it becomes like the flavor of the month. And there've been a lot of flavors of the month. Everybody spends a lot of money. They think it's the panacea that solves all of their problems. And it never is, right? Because if it's the same people applying the same mindset to how do I manage it, traditional data management, as I talked about earlier, you're not going to get very different results. If anything, you're going to get more of the same problem, right? Like big data technologies, same traditional data management problems, just with more data, right? Because it became big data. Or when you migrate to the cloud, okay, the same data management technologies, they're just happening faster because the cloud enables you to spin up new applications and new workloads faster just by its nature, right? And now with AI, okay, everybody wants to be smarter. This incredible new technology, so smart. The same challenges, though. You can't trust it if it's got bad data, right? So I guess what surprised me is how quickly people can jump on a new technology bandwagon, right? And it's great, for the vendors who are in that space. They can make a lot of money very quickly. But we end up having the same or similar results. People don't learn, right? So, for data management professionals and practitioners like me, sometimes it can be frustrating, right? But when you do finally arrive at a technology and an approach, which is different, but is proven to work, right? Denodo and its data virtualization based platform, we're hardly a fly by night operation, right? We've been around for over 20 years. We have customers who've used us in production for almost up to that long. This is proven stuff, and these customers have gotten demonstrable results, right? They were able to democratize all over their organization. They were able to accelerate their time to innovation. They were able to be more fearless, and some of them even openly talk about how it removed fears and FUD in their organization. So this is proven technology, which is proven to be pretty stable and consistent in its applicability, regardless of what all the different underlying technologies and waves of new technologies are happening underneath, right? So I guess to summarize, I've been surprised at how quickly and easily people adopt new technologies expecting a different result, right? And it's the same result, the same traditional data management problems, right? But I can now say there is a new technology, which has been proven over the years, a new approach, I should say, logical data management, which helps solve a lot of those problems. And, regardless of what technology is using underneath, you can finally get maximum value out of your data and much more quickly at the speed at which people need it.
Definitely. That was a great answer. Thank you so much, Dominic. And my final question for the day is, can you share a book or podcast that has had a significant impact on you?
Yeah, I can. Any day you ask me this, I might give a different answer. But today, what pops into my head, I'm a fan of Peter Drucker, a famed management consultant. He passed away a few years ago, unfortunately, but he had his heyday going all the way back to like the 1960s, 70s, and 80s, and he wrote a lot of excellent book.
Right.
He introduced the idea of the knowledge worker, somebody whose job was to just work with knowledge and information all day, right? And he was one of the early visionaries of, what it means for workers who need data to be more effective and successful in their jobs. So he's written several books on this topic, but one book he wrote called The Effective Executive, and he wrote this book like way back in the 60s, but the principles are timeless, right? Which is all about several good habits to have as an executive. And by the way, in his parlance, an executive doesn't just mean top of the org chart. It means anybody, who has the ability to make decisions that impact the business. So that could be anybody who works with a lot of data. It could be an analyst, right? It could be the customer loyalty people. It could be a salesperson, and anybody, right, whose decisions with data can impact the business. And there's some things in there like just time management and so on, effective decision making. But something that really sticks is asking the right questions, right? You got to think sometimes deeply about how do you ask the right questions. You can have all the data in the world, but if you're not asking the right questions, it's not going to make a lot of sense, right? Even with Gen AI, you got to ask it questions, right? There's no magic there, right? So sometimes, it's good advice. Everybody just slow down, take a deep breath, just think about, the environment you're in, no matter how chaotic or rapidly changing it might be. And think about, what is the question you're actually, trying to get an answer to, and be confident that that's the answer you need to actually make a difference, right? And where, Denodo can help you is you get that answer a heck of a lot faster, right? And it's a form that you can appreciate. But take a moment to, make sure you're asking the right questions. So, I recommend that book to anybody in knowledge work, actually, and including you, Neha. I think you'll find a lot of the principles in there are pretty timeless and probably more applicable now because the world is awash in data, than back then when he first wrote it with, people who use data in their jobs in mind.
Thank you so much for the recommendation, Dominic.
Sure.
And thanks again for joining us for a great session. It was a pleasure speaking with you as always.
You're welcome. Thank you.
And a quick message to our listeners. If you've enjoyed this episode, please head over to denodo.com/podcast to find out more resources on all things data.